Right, guys, we'll make a start. We are missing some few, so I'll just let them in as we go. So welcome to the secondary best practice workshop. We've got about an hour to 3:15 for this one. Please make sure your microphone's on mute. You can turn your camera on or off, that's up to you. And please use the chat box if you want to make comments or ask questions. There will be time at the end for a Q&A as well, and this session is recorded. Okay, just a little bit of housekeeping there. So we've got four secondary colleagues here to present today on sharing their school's approach to recovery from COVID-19 and what they've done in their school. So thank you very much to you for giving up your time and putting your presentation together to share your practice. Really nice that we can do that. So we've got Kirsten from Bude, who will be up first, followed by Matt Pound from St Ives, Rich Tucker from Penryn, and Lee Adams from Bude. So really good to see you guys, and thank you again. So Kirsten's going to go first and do her little presentation. Kirsten needs to shoot off, so we'll do a little Q&A after her session. So if there's anything you want to ask or anything you want to query, stick it in the chat and we can ask that at the end of hers. Then Matt, Rich and Lee will present, and at the end we'll have a big Q&A all together. So if you use that chat function or raise your hand and we can do things like that. All right, we'll make a start. So Kirsten, you are up first. Over to you.
Okay, hi, thank you for inviting me to talk on this. I'm probably not doing anything different with my team that we're all doing in and out of our own schools. But one thing that we just wanted to ensure, obviously, was the safety of our children being paramount, and then the emphasis on as much fun to try to get them back into good spirits after that lockdown period. But with all that, we have to consider the logistics. So I did spend quite a bit of time talking to my head teacher and making sure that we would get this right. And there's a lot of positives that have come out of the lockdown period and the change in the logistics, and ones that I actually want to keep if possible. If we ever go back to what is the old normal, becoming like new normal, I'd quite like to keep some of these things. So if I just chat first of all about the lesson protocol, by starting and ending in a classroom, it has been absolutely fantastic. It's really helped with things like behaviour management. It's helped to settle with children before and after, and it's really helped to make sure that we stick to the timing, which has been paramount, with the fact that the importance of the children not crossing bubbles, not mixing in the corridors with the stuff at the same time. So by making sure that they are in the classroom meeting their teacher and they're ending the classroom, it's been really strict. I have done a survey as well through Google Forms to all the students, and as you can see there, I surveyed well over 500 children, and around about 70% have said that they prefer it. I asked them for comments, and regular comments for things like this, because we get time before we go outside to discuss what we'll be doing, and after we get to talk about what we've learned. So in terms of the quality of teaching, that has just absolutely risen. It's also been a good opportunity for my team to, we use achievement points through class charts. So it's been a chance for the teachers to ask questions at the end of the lesson that's been linked to the lesson, record it instantly on class charts so the children are getting instant success, and they're really responding well to it. So definitely, I've been a big believer. Obviously, I appreciate that our school site lends itself quite well to it. Other schools that you guys might be from, your fields or your sports halls or your Astros might be quite far away, and it's not logistically possible. We're just in a really good environment that does allow for that. Also, we've totally locked our changing rooms. No one goes in the change room at all at any point. The children come in wearing their PE kits at the start of the day, and they stay in it all through the day. Positives and negatives to this. As PE teachers, we are certainly loving it because we can just crack on and start our lessons really effectively. We're not wasting any time in the change rooms whatsoever. And again, this helps with behaviour, and it helps with just a smoother transition. Obviously, it's safer in terms of COVID as well. The Key Stage 3 students are loving it. The Key Stage 4 that I've also surveyed, it's 100%. Actually, no, there was one child in year 10 that didn't like doing it, but other than that, it was 100%. The barriers that we've had with it, though, the children sometimes come in looking a little bit scruffy, because we have been flexible to allow any kind of hoodie to be worn, because our head teacher's been great in the sense he doesn't want parents to outlay more finance. So that's the only barrier, apart from also we can't get the students wet because they have to stay in their kits for the rest of the day. This is period 5, then we're flexible, we let them go out. But likewise, we want to keep them healthy as well. We don't want them getting cold. So we probably wouldn't be going out as much anyway in those conditions. So that has been fantastic. Now, because we're using the classroom, and because also when there are wet weather lessons and we can't utilise any practical space, we are doing what's called an enhanced curriculum, which is working really, really well, and the children are responding so positively to it, which basically means each of our year groups has a habit. So our year 7s, for all their sports, they focus on rules and regulations. Our year 8s, techniques and tactics. Year 9, performance analysis, all feeding into the level 1-2 BTEC first awards that we do. Now, if they're back in the classroom, what we have is a Google Drive shared folder for all teachers where we've uploaded resources to support that. But it's all active classroom based. It's not sitting down and writing. The children are up there, watching a netball game, for example, and then standing, pretending they're the umpire, being quizzed constantly. And that is working really, really well. It's enhanced because it's above and beyond what we are expecting in the practical lesson. It's just an opportunity for them to kind of condense what they've been learning and kind of just enhance it that little bit more, which is fantastic. And again, I'm going to definitely keep that one going if I can. We've also, alongside that, with those habits, we've got a Google Classroom set up for remote learning now for Key Stage 3. And on it, they've got their knowledge organisers for all of their sports linked to those habits. They've got lots of different YouTube linked videos to the different sports that we're offering. They've got optional homework tasks that are rewarded through lots and lots of achievement points, all of that kind of stuff. Every single half term, we're also quizzing students based on the sports that they've been learning, again, linked to their habits. So what we've done is we've gone for an emphasis of we're not just going to practically learn, we're going to use this opportunity to now really capitalise all the cultural side of things and embed a knowledge-rich curriculum. And it's working, really working. And the progress we're seeing in students is great. I took a gamble on making my whole school mixed gender PE, and it has massively paid off. We were all a little bit apprehensive, certain year groups we were a little bit worried about, but we thought if we do that alongside streaming the groups, then it should work. We have our sporty girls and our sporty boys together, and we have our less confident students, boys and girls, together as well. It has done wonders for student self-esteem. In terms of sports psychology, because that's my specialist area, it is fantastic. We're seeing so much more participation. We're seeing students looking happier and more confident in their lessons. Being streamed by ability has been great. So that is something that we took a risk on, but we're enjoying it as teachers. And as you can see in my survey, you look at 70% of that, just over under 600 students being surveyed are really enjoying it too. The remainder that were just on the fence. They were on the like-her scale, number 3, 50-50. No one said they didn't like it. The other thing we're doing, obviously at the moment with the new lockdown number 2, it might put a spanner in the works, but we are integrating extracurricular now. We haven't done anything between September and October half term, but what the plan is, and at the moment it is all still in place because the nature of how we're carrying it out lends itself quite well to COVID, because we have a year group per day after school from 3:15 to 4:15, carrying out extracurricular in our sports, all ventilation, everything COVID safe, the right sports, and it's in year group bubbles. So it's basically like a period 6 for that day. To support with things like track and trace and to monitor numbers, we have set up on Gateway a sign-up form, and it's capped at 30 students. So the parents can go on and they can basically book the place for their child. If a child was to then test positive, I'd be able to say to my head teacher, well, on Monday after school, these children were all together. So it would help to see who they've been kind of around. That's only started this week. I cancelled it, I put it back on. I don't know whether or not I have to cancel it again. My head teacher's waiting to get some more advice from speak to the other heads at Cash, and then we'll go from there. But it's being very well received. Our numbers are, all sessions are being booked out. The children need it, and I hope we can continue with it. Right, I spoke about the Key Stage 3 remote curriculum in my second bullet point, but that, like I said, during the lockdown, P actually had the highest interaction for all students. They just love it. They want it, they need it, and that's why we weren't originally going to put Key Stage 3 remote curriculum out, but we have. We obviously do everything through Google Classrooms. So Key Stage 4 and Key Stage 5 is really strong. It's working well. With our Key Stage 4, our theory, so for example, just before I came here, I had a Year 10 BTEC lesson, 4 students away because they're having to self-isolate. I'm able to go on directly after the lesson, type up what they did, link the resources I use. I take photos of students' books and attach them. And that's instant access for the children to then crack on with the work at home. And they are replying to me saying that they are doing it and that they're understanding it. So yeah, that's all our new approaches. Next slide, please. Okay, so obviously, like with anything, there are going to be lots and lots of barriers. I've kind of narrowed it down to our facilities, the wet weather, and starting in a classroom. So with our facilities, the nature of our school is we have staggered breaks and lunchtime. So Year 7, 10 and sixth form all have the same times, and then 8, 9 and 11 have a different one. Because of that, we can't actually use our sports halls periods 2 or 4. So what I made sure I did is design the curriculum activities so that we weren't actually going to require the sports hall. If we got in there, it'd be an added bonus, but we're not doing things like badminton, for example. It's not specifically in there. Okay. I also had to make sure with those facilities that we didn't clash over any bubbles. So we've had to have really careful timetabling back in the summer to minimise as many groups being put together. We have the odd ones where we might have a Year 10 core on at the same time as a Year 7. But again, it's just careful planning to make sure that our 7s are well, it would be our 7s. Our 7s are well away from our Year 10s. And then it's also obviously most schools have all their different exit and entry walking routes, and it's just making sure that we're being proactive to it all rather than reactive and so on. So facilities, we're fortunate. We have got our dome, our big tennis and netball dome. So when the weather is poor, we will go in there. It does mean that you will get quite a few students in there at one time, but we can open up all the doors and get the ventilation. And my team know where possible just to still try and maintain that knowledge-rich curriculum and not just treat it as an old school wet weather lesson of just play. We have managed to keep the standards high, which has been very, very good. Obviously, we've not been using the gym, squash courts, the old gym, anywhere that's been small has just been a no-go. The Astros had plenty of use before all the bad weather. The grass was being used at fields and so on. So our local swimming pool, that has opened up again and then it closed, but we're hoping to get swimming back in potentially for January for our Year 7s as well. So I've already spoken a lot about the wet weather. We're not able to get our students wet at all. We're just not allowed to do it. We don't want to do it either. So we will make sure that we stay in the classroom. And that's the beauty of starting in a classroom, is we can communicate that to the students there and then. We're able to walk in as a teacher and say, look, today we can't get a venue. This is what we're going to do instead. All the resources are there on Google Drive. And there's good consistency. And one thing we also do is we track this. So my team have a Google tracker for the activities. So not only does this help when you team teach with other teachers, certain classes, we can see which teacher has taught what activity, so we don't double up, but also we note down when classes have wet weather lessons, so that they're not always being in a classroom. We're making it fair, and we're making sure we share it out to give priority, especially to Key Stage 4, to get out and do practical, because they of all people need it more than anyone. One thing we do with the wet weather is every evening or morning, depending on how busy my day's been, I send a plan for the next day. It's on my top tips in a couple of slides. I really recommend that everyone does do this as a head of department. It's just strong communication. I think we've just jumped on a slide there. It's strong communication. We go through each period and we say what they need to do, and that's worked really, really, really well. Okay, yeah, so we just jumped to the top tips. So, yeah, if we could just go back a slide, that would be great. And then starting in the classroom, I've spoken about that. So let's move on to the SLT buy-in. They have been absolutely fantastic. We've got a really supportive head teacher who's really proactive. All SLT has been great. Timetabling was like paramount. We got through that. They liaised. They really listened to me and took on board everything that we needed to do. The PE kit, like I said, I spoke to you about that at the beginning. That has been really, really good. And then just the constant operational day-to-day basis, if something comes up, they will add it into their risk assessment, discuss it, implement it, and then change their risk assessment accordingly. So that's been great. Okay, next slide, please. Sorry, just rushing through this as quickly as we can. Okay, so we're really fortunate that we've got a PE technician. Now, she has been invaluable, and I wouldn't know what we'd do without her. So I'm sorry if I sound like, that this is fantastic and you don't have that opportunity. But if you do have someone like this, she's great. Because we start in the classroom, and because we've done that WhatsApp communication, she knows what's going on, and she'll get all the equipment out ready for everyone at the start of their lesson. She then cleans everything down at the end of the lesson. She rotates all the equipment around and the stock around. She's making old resources, like we need loads, rather than using bibs that take ages to wash and dry. She's making up sewing old bands. She sprays. She's known as Mrs. Sprayer, because she is the sprayer at the end of the lesson for the hand sanitizer. She has just been absolutely fantastic. We've taken away all her other kind of responsibility, and we've prioritised safety surrounding COVID as her main role. Okay. My other top tip is just do a survey. Students want to be heard, and I've learned a lot from doing my survey. It's really good, obviously, barometer groups and collecting that qualitative and quantitative data anyway, if Ofsted were to come about. I definitely easy to do, easy to set up, minimal time outlay to do it, but very, very, very powerful. And my extra tip is just having that communication there with your team, constantly talking. They all know just to keep checking it throughout the day if it's poor weather, to see if anyone's kind of had any changes to what they were planning on doing. So in a nutshell, there have been lots of changes. I'm really fortunate to work in a school where everyone has taken it positively. I think my biggest tip, though, is to have a really open growth mindset to it. Yes, things are scary and things are different, but we've embraced it and it's working positively for us. So thank you for listening.
Brilliant, thank you very much. That was awesome. Really thorough approach there. That really works for you guys, and I really enjoyed that bit, especially that last bit. Moving forward, that's really good to remember, isn't it? We've got to be open. We've just got to move with the times. We've got to roll with the punches, so to speak, and keep moving. There's a couple of things that come up. So I've just wrote down a question about coming in wearing PE kit. So in our Peninsula breakout, that seemed quite common as well. So there seems to be a lot of people doing that. What I was going to ask you is they mentioned they've had increased participation, so yeah, really high and not a lot of non-doers. Is that something you found as well at Bude?
Absolutely, we really have. I mean, I can't even really give you a percentage. Literally everyone is doing PE now. Yeah. It's fantastic. The students just prefer to wear their PE kit because it's so much more comfier anyway. and they're all just naturally doing it.
Brilliant. There's one in the chat from Neil Stoddard at Richard Lander as well, about starting in the classroom.
Yeah.
It's a great idea. Do you still have to clean desks and provide a seating plan for what could be 5 to 10 minutes? Do you still do that bit as well?
Okay, we don't, because they're in year group bubbles, we're okay with that. So if anyone was to go down, they would already know who's in that class. We don't do seating plans. We're also really fortunate that we don't have to clean down tables, because our school has hired a COVID-specific cleaner who goes around constantly cleaning and wiping down everything. So we don't need to take responsibility for that. It's probably one of the best investments the school has made. We spray the children on entry into the classroom and entry out of the classroom as well, though. So if they were to touch a desk that maybe hadn't been cleaned, they've been sprayed either side.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Has anyone got any other questions for Kirsten before she's got to run off? If you want to raise your hand or type in the chat, or we all good?
I just have one quick question, Dan.
Yeah, go for it, Matt.
Kirsten, how long are your lessons, and have you found that you've eaten into your activity time by starting and finishing in lessons?
Our lessons are good question. Our lessons are an hour long, but because we're not doing the changing, we're actually getting more time because it's a very short, sharp, snappy. An example would be I go into a year 8 classroom. The children have already been settled by the previous teacher, and that's another kind of whole school logistical thing that we've got set up. So they're there nice and quiet. I get the register done. I'm able to quickly reflect on what we did last lesson and what we're going to do now. They all put their masks on, quick squirt, out they go, and we're there straight. And then when like I said with the technician, we then go straight up to our area, all the equipment's out ready for us, and then we just crack on. And then at the end, we don't need to worry about packing the equipment away ourselves. We leave it back with the technician to clean it all down, and the children just walk straight back to the classroom. So it's actually more effective with time.
Sounds brilliant.
It is.
I wish we had one.
Yeah, get one. I never ever want to lose my technician or go and see the inside of a changing room ever again.
Brilliant. Okay, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much for sharing. That's awesome.
No problem.
You run
okay,
off.
thank you.
Thank you very much. See you later.
Okay.
Right. So Matt Pound from St Ives, you are up next. I'll hand over to you.
Thanks very much, Dan. Hi, everybody. Nice to see you. Thank you ever so much, especially to Mr. Gap, if you're listening, who so kindly nominated me to present this afternoon. I don't know if I'm going to tell you anything you don't sort of already know, or I feel that I may be teaching some very experienced colleagues to suck eggs, but I'm just going to share with you what we do at St Ives, or what we have done in terms of supporting our students back into school after a really, really long period of school closure. So Dan, if I can add the first slide, that'd be amazing. So the first thing I wanted to look at really with the team was to identify the challenges that we faced. And it was a completely unique and unprecedented situation, as we all know, with students out of school for almost 7 months. And the impact that had on the students was really, really considerable. We were very worried about what was happening to children at home. And that was borne out really by looking at the information that was sent out by AFPE, looking at the information that was sent out as well from the Youth Sport Trust. And that was telling us a lot about an increase in depression and other mental health issues that students were facing, an increase in inactivity and an increase in stress levels of the students. But before we during school closure and getting ready to come back again in September, I met with the team as well, and we looked very closely and asked people for their own experiences of working with students, because we had a system where we had to phone a lot of students as part of our wider pastoral work. And it was incredible, some of the responses that we were getting back about how students were engaging in PE lessons at home, or and just generally how they're doing. And I'll just share some of those with you. I phoned one student whose parent answered the phone and said that the student couldn't come to the phone because they were still in bed, and that was at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I phoned another student and asked how they were, and they could barely get through the first sentence before they broke into tears, which was really a powerful moment for me, and underlined the job that we have to do as teachers. And then I phoned another student who couldn't come to the phone either because they were busy swimming in their backyard in the swimming pool that their parent had put up for them, attached to a bungee cord so they can keep going with their training. And that kind of just highlighted the massive diversity and, dare I say, inequality of student experience while the school was closed. So we realised we were facing a really huge issue. We were also, of course, underneath all of the new COVID protocols, and at the time when that came out, you start scratching your head and wondering what PE could look like and can look like. On the back of that, we had a really high standard of expectation from our SLT, who have been very, very supportive through this process, and they still wanted really good quality lessons from PE, but had also in the first instance looked at the COVID protocols and questioned that in our particular school whether we were going to be able to do anything at all, which was quite a scary thought. And so we had to fight a little bit to make sure that PE was still included in our curriculum. But I'm happy to say that no changes have been made at all in terms of in terms of lesson time or anything like that. And instead, we've come up with what we felt was a really good solution. Earlier, we heard Sue Wilkinson talk about the role that PE had to play as being part of the solution for the challenges that the students have taken place. And that was really the position that we came at it from in terms of a PE team. We decided that we had a huge job to do to make sure that the E in PE was still really, really strong. We've worked hard to develop our determination and excellence and respect curriculum, which is a well-being focused curriculum, and we didn't want to lose sight of that. And despite Joe Wicks, I think, being awarded an MBE for getting the nation active every day, there wasn't a great deal of education in what he's doing, and therefore perhaps we're in danger of losing sight of the strength and purpose of our subject, and we wanted to put that absolutely back front and centre. So what we decided to do was put well-being right at the front of what we were trying to achieve, but that meant changing the curriculum that we had in place. Thanks, Dan. If you can switch slides. So what happened next was that we had to work out what our goals were going to be and look at the issues that we needed to tackle. The big question, wondering how our students were going to present themselves when they returned to school. So the areas that we looked at were those primarily that the Youth Sport Trust shared with us as part of their research, but we tweaked it to create a kind of a St Ives picture. And we decided that developing core fitness was going to be absolutely vital. We're very worried about the levels of inactivity of students during school closure. We wanted to create effective performance within our students, and because we felt there'd probably be a regression, having not had structured PE and not having structured sport for some time, we felt their skill performance would have gone backwards. But really importantly, we were very worried that these students would come in and not really feel part of their school anymore, and having not engaged with each other. So creating a sense of belonging and re-establishing really positive relationships was going to be critical. So that was our third central objective. Our fourth, we knew that under the DFE objectives that we were going to have to deliver all of our PE outside. We're unlucky enough not to have a sports hall, so almost every single one of our PE lessons since we've been back in September has been outside, every student, every single lesson. And that's one of the challenges that we've been facing. And so we've had to try to reconnect with the outside and increase activity levels with our students. And also to increase their confidence levels and deal with students who are coming in feeling very stressful, very inhibited, and wanted them to be able to take on a fresh challenge. Overriding all of that, however, we decided that we just wanted to have a lot of fun in PE and for students to absolutely enjoy being back at school. Because without achieving that, we didn't feel we were going to get anywhere. And when we look at the data from the Youth Sport Trust, enjoying PE is still the #1 driver as to whether a student is going to engage in activity. And so we had that right at the forefront of our thoughts when working out what we were going to do, given the limitations of not being able to do any PE inside, and how this was all going to work. Thanks, Dan. If you can flip slides. So we had to then come up with a plan, and what we did was we effectively suspended our normal PE programme and didn't try to carry on with our regular curriculum. Instead, we came up with what we've termed our recovery curriculum, and we changed all of the outcomes that we would have, which were the ones that were on our previous slide. What we then had to do was match up the outcomes to activities that we felt that we could deliver. And this meant in some cases working outside of our comfort zone. So we redesigned a programme to address those identified needs. We have 5 key outcomes. Fortunately, we also have 5 classes, 5 teachers, and we've decided we'd run this for 5 weeks, which made a perfect rotation model across those weeks, where each class would work through a different activity with a key wellbeing outcome attached to it. So it's the outcome that was driving the lesson as opposed to the activity merely being the model for delivery. The activities that we had, you can see there. We've got football golf that we tried, orienteering, we did touch rugby, athletics went back on. And then we looked at doing things like double Dutch skipping, which the students absolutely loved. They thought that was marvellous. We did bowls, and I was very nervous when I went out to deliver that with my top year 10 boys group who were expecting rugby, and it was a highly successful lesson. We've done as well lots of fitness work around cross country and also some kind of outdoor boot camp HRF type lessons. So we tried to be as creative as possible in what we were able to do, with our only resource being a grass field. Our athletics was focused on movement and fitness. Our cricket and touch rugby was focused on skills and developing competence. Bowls, the outcome there was to develop a sense of belonging and to establish positive relationships. Cross country and orienteering was all about increasing activity and re-engaging with the outdoors. And double Dutch skipping and football golf were providing little challenges to develop confidence and to de-stress and have lots of fun. We found that the students really have enjoyed doing something quite different to their normal rugby and netball lessons, which would have been the mainstay of our curriculum had they come back to a normal school start. So we're really pleased with the outcomes that we've had. Thanks, Dan. Final slide. What we did then was we just kind of reviewed the situation as we went along, because we had tried something new and we didn't want to just accept that it would work. What it did do, we found out, was make planning really easy, because although we adapted the pedagogy for each class, I would deliver that same lesson to year 7, 8, 9, 10 and 11 as they rolled through those different activities. And that meant that freed up teacher time as they returned to school a little bit, and so it had a positive impact on planning. Student feedback was really positive. They told us that they were enjoying these new activities, and perhaps a lighter approach from PE than they'd had previously. Did the constant review with the team. We checked that on each faculty meeting to make sure that we were still happy with what we were doing and if it needed changing at all. And we kept a really close eye as well on the DFE and the protocols that were being released, most notably the change when the national governing bodies were kind of put back in charge of what we could do in a PE setting. But we didn't just jump back into rugby and football. We stuck with it until our rotation had finished. Equally important, and I want to thank my Penryn colleagues here, it was really heartening to be able to share our experiences and collaborate closely with them about what they were doing in their schools, and to give us a sense of confidence that what we were doing was the right thing, and keeping well-being absolutely at the heart of the school. We have made it work. It has been enjoyable, and the top tips I'll leave you with is that you'd be amazed, I think, the level of creativity that your team can come up with. If you put them outside their comfort zone, they've probably got skills that they didn't even know that they had, or ones that they haven't been previously able to share with you. I never knew that one of my team was an outstanding skipper. So there's skills and competencies hidden among your team, and I would suggest that you try to use those. And the last thing is that none of it was created out of a blank sheet of paper. A lot of this already existed from the Youth Sport Trust and the AFBE, and I would encourage you to use the guidance that is out there, as well as the support from other colleagues in other schools. But that's me. Thank you ever so much. If you do have any questions, or if you want me to share any of the curriculum documents, I'm really happy to do so. Thanks.
Brilliant, thanks, Matt. Two schools, two completely different approaches, I would say, but both absolutely tailored to the needs of their pupils and the facilities they've got. And I just want to say hats off to you for doing every lesson outside. That's an amazing feat in itself. We'll add a few questions at the end once we've done Rich and Lee, if that's okay. So
no problem.
Hand over to Rich. I'll do a quick seat swap with Rich.
Thanks, Matt. I thought that was really interesting what you said about, the experience of home learning and how it was so different for, each student. So there was no two households that were the same, and that's obviously continued as well. In school, with what works for one school is completely different for the other. So what I wanted to just sort of talk about this afternoon was, some challenges we had pre-COVID, and we tried to keep moving forward and work to change our curriculum. And obviously the pandemic situation has made that more challenging, but also it's really given us an opportunity to drive our faculty forward. A couple bits for us, whole school, in terms of challenges, that gender gap for boys' attainment, and then in our sort of lifestyle faculty, there was some work that needed doing with our Key Stage 4 core PE curriculum. I know many of you in the county have fantastic Key Stage 4 curriculum offers, but there was something there we needed to do to improve our offer. So during that home learning, we were setting tasks weekly, and we were marking those tasks because the students had their iPads. So that really benefited us. And we were able to get a true picture of what was happening in PE, how active the students were being, and also their completion of their PSHE tasks. And as the weeks progressed, we very much moved forward to focusing around student well-being, and we ran a number of things like our well-being calendar. We had our virtual activities week offer, as well as some virtual competition with Polter, and that really sort of started to make us think about changes we needed to make for our Key Stage 4 curriculum. So coming back into school, we've really focused on getting back to basics approach around kits and engagement. We're fortunate with our changing rooms, so we have been getting students changed. And then with our year 10s and 11s, we've tried to have a sort of more of a fluid movement between our GCSE, BTEC and core groups. So rather than our GCSE being kept separate for our practical activities, we've invited those core students to, if they want to go and join, it might be like a football group or a netball group, they can do so, and that group then can be made up of GCSE, BTEC and core, and that's had made a fantastic difference. Really good examples of that in year 10 at the moment, which has really helped with our our engagement. And then our core PE curriculum, we all value obviously the importance of the core PE lessons for Key Stage 4, and students just you know, being active and having fun, you know, we really value that. But I'm always aware when someone walks in, you know, from SLT to do a lesson observation, and, you know, they keep saying, well, what are they learning? You know, what are the students getting from these lessons? Wanted to really, you know, make it clear about that wellbeing strand. So actually, some of the work that we did with, you know, with St Ives was really helpful when Owen came up on the SLE project. We had a look at some of the bits you're doing down at St Ives, and then we put in place the 5 ways to wellbeing for our core PE curriculum. So each half term, the students focus on one of the ways to wellbeing, and they might be, you know, doing a traditional activity. They might be doing badminton, and that's just the vehicle for them to evidence that way to wellbeing. So at the moment, the students have been focusing on how they connect with others, and on their iPads. You know, we don't want to spend lots of time in practical lessons on iPads, but they can evidence, you know, how they're connecting with others, whether that's in the lesson or outside of the lessons. And what we've managed to do this year is align our life skills teacher with the PE teacher. So you have the same group for PE and life skills. So in life skills at the moment, students are focusing on mental well-being. No surprise for that for the first unit this year. And that then crosses over in PE. So that enables the teacher to have a real good sort of hold of, you know, the students' well-being and how they can evidence and how they can apply what they're learning in life skills, how they can apply that in their practical lesson. So that's working really well. And we're looking at how we can almost, you know, assess students on their sort of commitment to well-being. So are they committed to their well-being around, you know, right from the basics in terms of bringing kit, you know, engaging in the lessons, but also their understanding around, you know, how they can maintain their own personal well-being when they leave school. We've got some more work to do on it. Obviously, we've only you know, launched this in September, so bits to do around you know, sharing good practice. Seen some fantastic work from one of our NQTs, Cameron, and he's had some Year 11 core boys in the fitness suite doing some weight training, and he's got sort of an online program on their iPad, and they're then evidencing their training they're doing outside of school, and that's all going in that PE folder on their iPad. So if we do get those lesson drop-ins, there should be a real nice bit of evidence to show that person, you know, how students, it's not just what they're doing in their PE lesson, but how they're developing, you know, their all-round well-being. Second sort of project, you know, at the moment that we've been working on, and this is, you know, been made more challenging by COVID, but we just felt that during home learning, it became really clear that some of our highest performing students, they were the ones who really struggled during lockdown, because they lost their, you know, for many of them, their 7 days of sport. So the last couple of years at Penryn, they've been running this performance sport program, and we've just sort of taken that to the next level this year, really. So all of Year 11 have a timetabled lesson on a Wednesday afternoon, which we call at school prep. It's basically revision. So the whole of Year 11 are on that, which obviously is you know, we're very fortunate to have that. And we've been able to make up 4 groups this year, 4 classes of PE students. We've got a football-based group, a netball focus group, an individual group and individual sport group, and then a rugby group. And on a Wednesday afternoon, we've got PE teachers assigned to those groups. We folks start off in a classroom, and we're looking at some mentoring and revision support, putting revision plans in place, checking in on well-being, helping them to identify areas of weakness, you know, around their core subjects, and then possibly being that link to those members of staff. And then we go out and we do some, you know, training. We're trying to make that as high quality as possible, you know, to focus on their sports and almost bridge that link for them when they go, you know, move on to college and so on with academy sport. And then this year we've built in, you know, some extra areas to it. So we've got a boys group who have been made into a small tutor group, an intervention group of boys. Your typical, you know, big sort of lads who love their football, love their rugby, needs sort of keeping a close watch on in school, can be slightly challenging at times with behaviour. So Dan Lugg's really driving forward some projects with them, doing some fantastic work where in tutor time he's able to do some real focused mentoring with them. And then on a Wednesday, they have to, in their tutor time, they go down with the music department, and we've got an amazing music teacher who well, we call it singing, we call them a choir, but the main real focus for us in the PE team is the amazing impact she can have on them in terms of, you know, developing their concentration, setting them up for the day. You know, it's amazing when they walk into that, you know, main hall to that session with her in the morning, you know, that they're usually, the heads aren't always in the game, but by the end of that session, you know, they're really focused. It makes a huge difference. And then we're also got a classroom that they can access after school for revision sessions, and they've got a sign-up form where they sign up to that Google form that they want a session after school for revision, you know, quiet space to work. We're then able to, Dan will use his time to contact, you know, members of staff and maybe, you know, arrange for that maths teacher to pop down and speak to those boys. And then as a reward, we found the knack to get them there is to then say that the fitness suite is available after for them to use. So they're in there 3:30 to 4:30 in the classroom, and then they move to the fitness suite to do their weight training, which they seem to have really bought into at the moment. And we're having, you know, regularly, you know, Monday to Thursday, they can access that. You know, we're having anywhere between sort of 15 and 20 students attend that. And that's really helping raise our profile around school. And, you know, we're getting a lot of positive feedback from staff. And it was actually mentioned in our, you know, exam review, heads of faculty from other departments said that they really felt it had an impact on the last cohort's boys' attainment, and also that bit where we can, you know, hold them to account a bit in school, that these are sort of privileges that they wouldn't possibly, you know, get if their behaviour's not right. Obviously, last year we were running, you know, some sort of big sort of fixtures for these groups where we were able to take those teams off. That's been a challenge this year, not really been able to do that. We managed to get one football fixture for the Year 11 boys, and they went up to Millfield. And we're just, you know, like others said, I'm trying to be creative with how we can, you know, provide alternative sessions for them. So another one that I didn't mention was, you know, Monday, Tuesday mornings. On the Mondays, we have boys squad are invited in to do strength and conditioning. Tuesday, the girls, and, you know, it's rarely we have below 25 students on either day. And again, the difference that makes to those, you know, especially those boys, they do that training in the morning, certainly their, you know, conduct around school and just, you know, getting them set up for the day, you know, it's far better. So it's something we really, you know, want to, you know, push forward with and keep developing. And that leads really into, you know, our sort of top tips, you know, from what we've learned the last few weeks. That the second one there, you're talking about those Year 11. I think driving the value of Year 11 sport, you know, every opportunity. When I think about, you know, last year, if you look at the, you know, the county netball tournament for Year 11 girls, you know, so well, you know, accessed by so many schools in Cornwall. You know, back in September, I remember Matt Johnson running the, you know, the Boys Rugby Festival at Treferris, and, you know, it was really strong. Loads of schools attending, and I think we all know, you know, the value of Year 11 sport. And I think now is a really good time to keep trying to push that students are getting that chance to access, you know, obviously practical PE in their lessons, but anything we can do to provide extra, you know, opportunities to support their well-being, you know, at this difficult time, and especially as we edge towards exams, if there is exams. The second bit I'd say is around linking with, you know, your PSHE department. So, you know, the PE staff here, we deliver the PSHE, and that's meant that crossover for student well-being, we can closely link with PE, and I think that just, you know, really strengthens, you know, the position for our faculty, and we can really demonstrate to people that, you know, student well-being really is at the centre of what we're doing. Okay, thanks for that.
Cool. Thanks so much to Rich. If anyone wants any more info on that performance sport bit and the work I'm doing with the boys, just ping us an email and we can share what we're doing and happy to help. A little bit aware of time, so going to move on to you, Lee. Last but not least.
Perfect. Thanks, Dan. Don't worry, I'll still be done by 1:15. Just because obviously Dan's giving me the graveyard shift right at the end of the day. I thought I'd just read out this message. I'm sure you're all sat there with your phones exactly like I am, but if you're not, this might put a smile on your face at the end of the day. Youth Sport Trust welcomes continuation of PE and school sport during the lockdown. The Youth Sport Trust has today welcomed a clarification from the Cultural Secretary, Oliver, that extracurricular sport can continue during the national lockdown for the next month. So hopefully that's met with a bit of a round of applause and there's a bit more clarity there. All right, because earlier today, I mean, we had Sue and everybody else there still wasn't really any clarity, but it looks like there is. Come the end of the day, clubs can continue. It says it doesn't clarify about fixtures, but at least clubs, and it's there for us to in black and white that we can move forward. So for me, coming back after the summer, the approach and kind of why, and if Dan clicks on one slide, is we were really clear here. We just come up on five kind of objectives straight away from the beginning. The whole school, SLT, myself, communicated throughout the summer, and it was a must. All right, all children must continue with physical education and physical activity. It was as simple as that. The decision not to put PE on the curriculum or to reduce it or for children to do classroom-based stuff, and that's not to contradict some of the other messages that other schools are doing, but it just wasn't on our agenda. We had to get children outside or sometimes inside, but being physically active and having that physical education element still there. But the school decided then to kind of place school sports, so kind of the fixture side and the extracurricular, put that on hold. They said, let's get curriculum time right first after the national lockdown, and then we can build upon that afterwards once we've got the in-school stuff ready. We're lucky enough, they decided to put extra PE on to compensate for not having the after-school clubs to start with. They've given us more curriculum time, which is great because they knew there was that lack of physical activity during lockdown. When we did surveys, children were keeping fit, but it was well below what they were usually doing when they were at school. So then we decided to look at a curriculum that was adaptable around the sports, given on the weather, but actually embedded the school games values and as a foci for us. We're lucky we host Emma Moore School Games organiser with us, so we wanted to make her role more established within the school. So by using the values that come alongside the school games, it really helped us to build on that curriculum. Thanks, Dan. So the barriers that we've overcome, just to kind of just go straight in, because they're all COVID related, really. Changing rooms, a big one. There's still lots of discussions now going on around changing rooms and how you can manage them. So we had to think creative. We wanted to make sure we had routines and kind of we kept with our strict behaviour policy and kids knew what to expect when they come back to school. Nothing different. A new norm, yes, but as close to the old one as we could to make sure they felt settled. So the changing rooms, we wanted to put them back in place. We made the decision that they had to come to school in school uniform, that they had to do PE. So the only option was to change. We went and did some risk assessments and we found out, depending on kind of the age group, so year 11s, we can only fit 15 in there really, whereas year 7s, we can fit 20 students. So we knew we were going to have to do it on a rota, which is going to take a bit of time. So then that led us in to think, well, how can we get that time? Well, actually, if we double up lessons, then that changing time can double, but it's not the end of the world. You're still going to get a good chunk of 90 minutes, an hour and a half of physical activity in that middle. So that's the model we went for, which then implemented the rest of the school. So all lessons have now gone to double lessons, but that's off the back of making sure PE could work. We then had to look at sports and spaces. So making sure we're following the national governing bodies about what you can do, what you can't do. Kind of the RFU were really good and everybody would have printed it out, but having their stage response was excellent. We introduced the one-way systems. Every school would have done that, so that's nothing new to everybody. But we were lucky enough that our change rooms do have an entrance and an exit as well, and they do have windows and they are ventilated, so that helped us with getting them open. And then we just put a cleaning rotor in place to make sure we're prepared. We're not lucky enough, like Kirsten up there at Bude, to have a PA technician, but we've all clubbed together and we've put a rotor of duties that need to be done every morning. So different member of my department come in early, set up, if that's getting the cleaning products ready, making sure the bibs were washed from the day before, ready to go. But again, one of the tips later on is we bubbled a lot of our equipment. School really supported us and said, actually, what we'll do is we'll invest in you equipment wise. What do you need? I went and did a stock check over the holidays, managed to put in a nice order for a nice lump of, right, we're starting off with boys rugby. Can we have some more? Yeah, and so on. The school really invested in that to enable us to bubble our equipment, which was a nice approach. Thanks, Dan. And then just reiterate about SLT, really, what they valued from me is just being open and honest. I went to every single kind of meeting online we could during lockdown to give them the feedback, to rest assured they knew somebody was staying updated. And I took it to them and I said, this is what's come back from the PE and School Action Group. This is what we're allowed to do. And then we introduced this active break. So having a joint vision, we also wanted to increase that activity time. Yes, they got lots and lots of PE, which is great, above average here at Polterra, which I'm really pleased about. But if they're still not getting extracurricular, especially for the first half term, if not term, because we were unsure, it was about making sure they still get some kind of activity during the day. So we introduced an active break. I've placed on the slide there AM or PM, because different year groups have it in the morning compared to the afternoon. But it's where they get to go up just in their year group bubbles for 20-25 minutes. And actually there are basketballs that they can play with, there's netballs they can play with, posters set up, footballs. It's supervised not by the PE team, okay, so it acts as a break time, but it's controlled where they can still be active. So again, just trying to increase that time that they get to spend together, because the feedback we had was, yes, they were engaging in virtual activities we were setting them, but they're all individual. Now they wanted to be able to then play together, so that's why we've moved some goals down onto the court so they can play football as well. We introduced movement zones around the school, so ensuring that children stay in their bubbles but they get that movement during the day. So after every lesson they follow a movement zone on the way to their next lesson, which makes it A, controlled for us, but B, making sure they're getting that kind of little bit of activity to break up, bit of fresh air before they go into next lesson, because they're following that path. And then, like I said, I was really encouraged and supported to say, look, do not worry about after school fixtures. It's not high on the agenda right now for us as a school. I know it is for some, but it wasn't for us. Please focus on in-school stuff and getting the educational side right, and we can build on the extracurricular when it's time to do so. And we always put kind of October half term as the time to do that. We've got a program ready to go from now, but then with the announcement we thought we were going to hold it, but hopefully now we can still go ahead. And I'm going to literally go and see my head here, Mr. Everett, straight after. So thanks, Dan. And then just two top tips from me, really. And I know it goes against what Kirsten said at the beginning about she likes them coming in PE. For us here at Polterra, making sure the children get changed for PE, it's brought around that routine, that normality for them. They felt comfortable. There wasn't anything different. They didn't feel scared. We didn't need to build up their confidence again, because they actually knew what school was going to look like, because we didn't change very much. And then another one, lots of discussions in the Mid-Cornwall area. Do we start with athletics in the very first half term? I made the real kind of decision to stick with a close curriculum as what I usually would. So my boys have been doing rugby, but we've just been following the rugby guidance. Girls were on football this time of the year, and they've been carrying on with that. But we have, like I said, put in the foci of the school games values to make sure we're working on their personal development following the lockdown as well. And then when I told the health and safety executive here at the school that I was delivering this presentation today, he wanted me just to put out there, just because there's a few common misconceptions around the Milton tablets. And he said, like, if you're speaking to lots of other professionals, it might be worth clarifying. He would like to stress that Milton is a really good form of cleaning equipment, but if you are going to do it, it's 3 tablets to 5 litres of water. He's been made aware several schools are filling up lots of buckets, only putting 1 or 2 tablets in, and leaving it for days. It does only last for 24 hours if you're going to use it as a disinfectant. That's not from me. I'm not the scientist or anybody behind that, but that's from a health and safety point of view. When I told him I was presenting today, like I said, it was a whistle-stop tour of what we've done, and I've gone over by about a minute or two. So thanks, Dan.
I think we can let you off since you announced that tweet. That's made my week. Thank you, mate. You know, I just want to say thank you for doing that. You can see that you've got a huge enthusiasm for PE and sport, and making your students at Voltaire, you know, bringing them back into physical activity and make sure their well-being is there, and as high as it can be. I just want to say thank you for your work with us as school games organiser over lockdown. We've really appreciated you kind of having a voice as a head of PE with us, and again on the PE and School Sport Alliance group that you worked on as well. So thank you very much for that. I'm aware we've gone over a little bit, but does anyone want to ask any questions for Rich, Matt, or Lee before we shoot off? Are we all happy? Obviously, we can all get in contact on emails if we need to. Yeah, guessing that's all happy.
I reckon they've already gone down.
Yeah, probably. Cool. All right, we'll leave it there then. If you've got any questions for the presenters, then just get in touch with us and we can pass them on and link you up. But hopefully you've enjoyed that this afternoon, and that's the end of the day, really. There's no closing or anything. So thank you very much for attending the Cornwall PE and School Sport Conference in very different circumstances this year. Poor biscuits and coffee here at Penryn, I must say. So I will moan about that. But thank you very much, guys. Have a great weekend, and see you soon.
Cheers, Dan.
Thanks, Dan.
Bye.
Thanks, Dan. Thank you very much.
Cheers, guys.